God had given his people Moses to gain their freedom from slavery in Egypt, a code of law in the commandments, and instructions on how to worship him. They were in the Sinai desert on their way to the land God had promised them, yet they grumbled. God himself led them through this trackless desert as a cloud by day, which became a cloud of fire by night. This cloud showed them that God was with them on their journey. They took with them the tabernacle, a portable tent in which God met with Moses on their journey. After a long journey from the Red Sea to Kadesh Barnea, Moses sent spies into the land of Canaan to the north that they were able to take as their own, the land to which God had led them. Of the 12 spies sent, 10 reported that the people were too powerful and the cities were too fortified. They could not take this land. However, 2 of the spies reported that they could take the land because God would give it to them. He had promised it to them. This disagreement caused rebellion among the people, who grumbled all the more. The name of these 2 spies who believed these freed slaves could claim the land of Canaan as their own were Joshua and Caleb. The 10 who doubted God's ability to give them the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord, as we read in Numbers 14:37. The people then decided to go up and take the land, but they had rebelled against God and they were attacked. Their disobedience to the Lord resulted in 40 more years of wandering in the desert until a new generation was born who would be more faithful. The new generation was soon to enter the land promised to them. Moses, the one who had led them throughout the long journey from Egypt, climbed Mount Nebo to survey the land. There he died and was buried by God himself, as we read in Deuteronomy 34. God told Joshua of Moses' death and that he, Joshua, would lead the people to take the land. He reminded Joshua that he was with Moses and would be with him and would never forsake him. He encouraged him to be strong and courageous. We read in Joshua 1. Joshua then sent 2 spies to look over the land, especially Jericho, the nearest city. The spies entered Rahab's house where they hid. Rahab cared for them because she had heard of their God and his mighty deliverance of them from Egypt. Confident that they could conquer Jericho, the Israelites set out to cross the Jordan River, led by the Ark of the Covenant carried by the priests, symbolic of God's leading. When the priest stepped into the water, the river stopped flowing and the people walked across on dry ground again. Joshua chose 12 men, one from each of the 12 tribes, and had each of them to take a stone from the river to set up as a memorial. When the more than 40,000 had crossed the river, the water returned to its flow. The kings of the land west of the Jordan River heard of how the river had dried up and were fearful of the Israelites. Joshua ordered the people to silently march around the fortified city of Jericho once each day for 6 days, led by the Ark of the Covenant, carried by the priests, along with 7 priests blowing their trumpets or ram's horns. On the 7th day, however, they were to march around the city 7 times. On the 7th time around the city, Joshua commanded all the people to shout loudly, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." We read in Joshua 6:16. When they shouted, the great wall around Jericho collapsed, and the city was destroyed, except for Rahab, who had helped them, and her family. The wealth of Jericho, silver, gold, bronze, and iron, were kept for the treasury of the Lord's house. Achan, however, was unfaithful. He took some of the wealth for himself rather than for the Lord's house. He buried his treasure in the ground under his tent. The next city to conquer was Ai, to which Joshua sent spies. They returned with assurance that the entire army would not be required to conquer the city. However, the Israelites were strongly defeated, and Joshua asked God why. God explained to him that Israel had sinned. That which was devoted to God had been taken. Joshua's investigation led him to Achan, who was stoned for his sin along with his family. The consequence of sin is death. Joshua led the Israelites to defeat Ai and made it a permanent heap of ruins, as we read in Joshua 8:28. God is a forgiving God. He kept his promise to be with Joshua as he went to war against the group of kings of the southern kingdoms who banded together when Gibeon made peace with Israel to escape destruction. As the battle raged, the day was coming to an end. Joshua asked God that he might have more time, that the sun would stand still over Gibeon, and it did, giving Joshua the victory. Joshua and Israel were also given victory over the northern kingdoms. With God's help, he defeated 31 kings and their cities in 7 years of battle. It was time for Joshua to assign the 12 tribes to their portion of the land, which he did. There was still land to be conquered, which would be the responsibility of the tribes. Joshua was a military leader, but more importantly, he listened to God and obeyed him. He fulfilled God's plans for the 12 sons of Jacob to inhabit the land he gave them. As an old man, Joshua encouraged the Israelites to be very careful to love the Lord your God, as recorded in Joshua 23:11. He stated, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Joshua 24:15. This decision was the secret of his success.